May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be always acceptable to you, O Lord. I want to begin by thanking you all so much for supporting me over the last 4 years. When Craig and I arrived with our 7-month-old baby, I could never have imagined that we would flourish so much here. Aside from my ministry, we've had so many special family moments here. Craig was confirmed here. Trinity was baptised here. We are forever connected to St Martin's and St Anthony's by the precious memories we've made. Today feels like the right day to share with you all the story of what God has done for me. This isn't a story about me. I'm just a witness to the amazing transformative power of God. Something happened to me which meant I was utterly changed. I had to live differently. From the age of 13, I had an especially rare and severe form of endometriosis, an illness which affects 10% of women, but is often not discussed and can take a long time to diagnose. It was an unbelievably painful condition to live with, and it worsened through my teens and early 20s, though none of the doctors I saw could tell me what was wrong. When I turned 25, I was nearing the end of my PhD in reproductive immunology. I had big plans for a high-flying career as a scientist, but I was in uncontrollable pain every day, and it began to seriously affect my ability to walk or even stand. After 12 years of suffering, I was diagnosed and told that I should expect to spend the rest of my life using a wheelchair and that I wouldn't be able to have any children. I was also told that the medication I was on to try and give me some relief would put me into an early grave. This hit me incredibly hard. I was really lost, and I didn't know what to do. I have been a Christian all my life, but I didn't attend church very regularly at that stage, and being honest, I kept God at arm's length. I always believed in God, but the prejudice I experienced from other Christians because I was bisexual made me feel that church was not a safe place for me to be. It's also fair to say that I wasn't a very typically churchy young person. A friend from my teenage years recently commented that I've come a long way from being a tearaway youth 20 years ago. But I'm sure many of you were too, come on. A big part of me thought I didn't deserve to even sit in a pew. And yet after this devastating news, I found myself on a rare visit to church, feeling like I had no future, and in particular that God had run out of use for me. But like the woman with the hemorrhages, after 12 years of suffering, I needed to seek Jesus out. It was not easy for me, aside from worrying about how I would be received at church. I could barely walk. I was living in Glasgow and dragged myself across the road to the subway station and took it to a short distance from the Anglican Cathedral in Glasgow. The walk either side should have taken 5 minutes, but every step was a challenge. Before communion, as in many communion liturgies, we were invited to say the words, "Lord, I am not worthy to receive you, but only say the word, and I shall be healed. I don't know why, but that day when I said those words, I totally believed them. I went forward, received Holy Communion, and was filled with the most indescribable feeling of warmth and light. I could not speak, but I knew in an instant that God had changed me and my pain had gone. I walked not just to the subway station, but all the way home. Before the service, there was no way that I could have done this without collapsing. Along with the dramatic healing was the message that I had been given this second chance for a purpose. I had felt called to ordination before, but rejected the idea outright. This time I knew that I had to trust in God. The more time I spent in prayer, in church and building my faith, the more my health improved. In fact, at my next hospital appointment there was more in store. I did not tell the doctors what had happened, but the consultant said, "I don't know what to tell you. You have been cured of an incurable disease." Even now, 9 years after the Eucharist that changed my life, it is difficult for me to relay this story because I still don't know what to make of it. At the time this happened, I was teaching scientists, medical students and doctors about evidence-based medicine. I was a full-on skeptic, someone who was invited to give lectures about pseudoscience. I believed God healed people, but through the gift of medicine. My heart knew of the transformative love of God. My head was still catching up. I may never know exactly what happened, and yet here I am able to walk pain-free, and I have 2 wonderful little girls. One of the biggest mysteries is why me? I was not holy. I was not deserving. There were so many faithful people who could have been remade through an experience like this. I don't know why me, and my heart goes out to all of those who are still longing for healing of one kind or another. I had long given up praying for healing. In fact, being honest, by this stage, I was praying to die if it meant a release from the pain. I don't know why this happened to me, and I will live with that question all of my life. I hope that in dedicating my life to God, I can show how truly thankful I am that God showed mercy towards me. Presiding at the Eucharist is the biggest privilege of my ministry, because I know that the power of receiving it can be life-changing. I have no doubt in my mind that the body and blood of Jesus Christ are healing for body and soul. I want to emphasize again, this story isn't about me, it's about God. Our second reading and our gospel reading talk repeatedly of abiding in God, living in God and God living in us. God gave me new life, a real taste of resurrection. And now I am so much more aware that all life comes from God. In the Gospel reading, Jesus says, "Apart from me, you can do nothing." But if we live for God, and with God, and in God, each one of us can do wondrous things. God has new life for all of us. New life looks different for each one of us. That is the essence of vocation. But we are all called to live in God. So I leave you with this. Don't keep God at arm's length. Live in God, and whoever you are, God will live in you. I hope my story has shown that God works through unexpected people, that God's love is all-powerful, and that even in the utter absence of hope, God speaks. Discerning what God has in store for us is not always so dramatic, and I have needed a great deal of wisdom, guidance, and support from many people. I have found St. Martin's, St. Anthony's, and mine to be a wonderful place to grow into being a priest in the Church of God. I hope this will be a place where each of you will continue to grow in faith, hope, and love. I can't thank you all enough for the love you have shown myself and my family. I trust that you will all continue to build on your gifts, be brave in your offerings, and abide in God. Amen.